And Chrissy, all of us, not to the extent of you, but we've all asked those same questions at some point in our life. Why me, God? Why has this happened to me? It's not fair. So how did you deal with that and not just be swallowed by those questions?
Yeah, it was hard through lots of circumstances. And again, I'd be happy to talk to anyone about the details later. But my attitude started to change, and that was a long process. I did submit myself to some counseling, and I really think that was wise to do in that season. My questions really changed from a why me focus to how is God using me in this situation. So I soon started to see opportunities all around me to share that I never would have had without my disability. Like 7 years ago, I traveled up to Mayo Clinic for a consultation with oodles of doctors. I was there over a week. And I realized almost immediately that I really had a unique platform, because even though I was up there alone, we had no kids at the time, and Michael was just finishing up a busy tax season. He's a CPA. So I was up there alone, but I didn't feel alone. I felt very supported by God. And I was able to share about my faith and pray with and encourage other people who, even though they were there with family and friends, may have felt very alone in the midst of their own medical crises. I was also invited to be a volunteer mop-up worker because I was off for work on disability. I had the freedom in my schedule to do so. And I look back at those days pre-being a mom, and I realized that I received so much love and joy and encouragement from kids, and they just saw me as Miss Chrissy. They didn't see me as a disabled person. That was, as silly as it sounds, a childlike view that I needed people to have with me at that time. So I just fell in love with them. And God, I realize now that God had led me to MOPS even before I was a mom, because He knew I would need MOPS someday. So it's interesting to me that God just led me there even before I needed it.
So obviously over a course of time you went from being wheelchair bound to being mobile. You went from not being able to speak clearly to being able to speak very clearly, and live rather independently. So give us some high points of the last 9 years.
So there are lots of stories to tell, but some of the most notable ones. Michael is amazing, my husband. He really meant it when he said He will love me in sickness and in health, and through good times and bad. And He lovingly serves me and helps me every day. He encourages me through the dark times and challenges me when I'm getting stuck in my own pity parties. He reminds me how blessed I am and gives me a kick in the tush and says, move along, you've been here long enough, so that's exactly the partner I need. And I just feel very blessed that next month we'll be celebrating 11 years together. And because of my disability, Michael and I had kind of come to peace with the idea of never having kids. And that was hard because we wanted a family. That's what started this whole process. So at my doctor's recommendation, we were actively preventing pregnancy. Yeah, that didn't work so well. In September 2003, we found out we were pregnant. And even though we were very concerned with the impact that would have on my health, we were ecstatic because we wanted a family. So on May 17th, 2004, our daughter Rebecca Joy was born, perfectly healthy at the culmination of a textbook perfect pregnancy. And again, we chose to name her Rebecca Joy, and she really has filled our lives with a lot of joy. But God wasn't done, because in August of 2005, we found out we were pregnant again. Side note, don't take lessons in contraception from me, okay? So we were pregnant again. Another really simple, I hate to say, but easy pregnancy. I was not very sick at all. So Zachary Michael was born March 27th, 2006, 3 weeks early, but perfectly healthy. And kind of an overall, in the last 9 years, I have gone from being in a wheelchair and not able to go to the bathroom by myself or anything to being totally independent. I can drive again, I cook, I clean, I do laundry. Not well sometimes, but most importantly, I'm able to take care of our home and dog and be mom to Becca and Zach. And being a disabled mom is not easy. It takes me longer to do most things than the average able-bodied mom would do, but I've seen God provide for us on so many occasions and keep us safe in ways that I never could have dreamt of.
So those of us who've known Chrissy for several years are amazed at the two beautiful children she has and what great kids they have. We all know that Zach is all boy from head to toe, and he pushes it sometimes because he knows he can, but they are great kids. So it seems like you finally got the American dream and everything's great, but in the midst of all of that, you're still disabled. So how has that affected you, changed you? How did you deal with that?
I'll be really candid. Even though I was experiencing blessings in so many areas of my life, inside my heart I had developed a very cynical and sarcastic and skeptical perception of God. I developed almost a Janet Jackson kind of view of God. What have you done for me lately? And when I would read the Bible, I would distort and twist the unwavering truths of God based on my own shifting circumstances. So I'd read in Matthew where it says, "Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake?" And I'd say to God, I'm asking for fish and bread, and I feel like I'm getting stones and snakes. And I basically convinced myself that the only fish I wanted from God was to not be disabled or to need a walker, and that anything less than that was a stone from God or snake from God. So I was really stuck in my warped thinking, because when you get in that cycle, it's just a downward spiral. So I was stuck in my warped thinking, believing that God could only bless me on my terms. So in so doing, I was not recognizing His ever-present blessings and provisions in my life. It took the wise counsel of a friend to help me get unstuck and change my warped perception of God. She reminded me that God, as our loving Father, only gives us good gifts, like fish and bread, and never gives us snakes. And the verse I shared a minute ago continues by saying, "If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask Him?" So think of this analogy, ladies. As moms, from time to time, we have to give our kids medicine for an ear infection or whatever. And the kid's typical response is, "I don't want it, it's yucky." To which we reply something to the effect of, "Trust me, it'll make you feel better." That's perception. That's all about perception. And when we stop to say and recognize that things in our life are not snakes, but fish from God, no matter how much they may look like snakes to us, but they are fish because God only gives us fish. It's a change in your perspective. So going back to the analogy, we as moms know what our kids need, like medicine for an ear infection, or ongoing, like being buckled in their car seats, or getting good rest and eating healthy food. And even if our kids don't like it and wiggle and squirm and hate their car seats or their broccoli or going to bed on time or whatever, we do everything we can to accomplish that goal because we as the mamas know best. We are loving parents in this analogy, just like God is our loving Heavenly Father. So the problem I and many of us have is, again, that we just change our perception. We view the unpleasant things in our life, whether it be a disability, job loss, marital conflict, health issues, death of loved ones, financial issues, as snakes instead of fish.
Yeah, my kids are grown, but when they were little and had chickenpox, which we didn't have a vaccine for back then, the only medicine was oral Benadryl, which tasted horrible. So they would be screaming and crying as I had to give them the Benadryl, but it's the only thing that helped the itching. So I understand that. So you needed a change in perception. You needed to understand that God only gives good gifts. So how did you do that?
It wasn't easy. When my friend reminded me of this, I kind of began just repeating to myself, it's not a snake, it's not a snake, it's not a snake. I feel like I said it a million times in my own head. So I would say it over and over whenever I caught myself having a distorted perception of my circumstances. And just because God knows that I'm a visual learner, I started seeing snakes all around me, toy ones. It seemed like every toy snake my son owned just emerged from the depths of toy boxes where they'd been buried for weeks, months, years. And they were like everywhere in the house. I was tripping over them and picking them up. I couldn't believe how many snakes this kid had. And then Zach also comes home super excited about their new unit at school on reptiles and snakes. So he's bringing home artwork with snakes. And I'm like, okay, God, I get it. It's not a snake. So snakes were all around me, and I chuckled each time I saw one, reminding myself that my challenges are not snakes. God can and yet does use even the most difficult or unimaginable circumstances for His glory. And I know that it's hard to grasp because I even think about my disability. I hate it. It sucks. Let me say it again. It sucks. I wouldn't wish on anyone, but I choose to trust that it's a fish from God and not a snake. Perhaps He's using my disability to slow me down from the super fast-paced lifestyle I had pre-disability and make me a better mom than I would have been if I were able-bodied. Perhaps He's using it to provide for my family financially. Because of my disability, I now receive Social Security disability benefits monthly from our government. So even though I don't work outside the home, I'm paid to be a stay-at-home mom. Or maybe God's using it to make my kids really sensitive to people with disabilities or who are different than themselves. And only time will tell how they use that in their future careers or life. Only heaven will reveal the true picture of why my earthly body was my earthly life was lived in a broken body. But I choose to trust with joy that my disability is a fish and not a snake.